Welcome back to Fascinating History, where today we discuss the disgusting hygiene habits medieval royals thought were completely acceptable. While our imaginations might conjure images of medieval kings and queens as figures of pristine majesty, draped in luxurious fabrics within gleaming castles, the reality of their personal hygiene was often a far cry from such romantic notions. Peeling back the layers of courtly etiquette and opulent attire reveals a world where the very concept of consistent and thorough cleanliness was rudimentary, shaped by a confluence of limited scientific understanding, practical constraints, and cultural norms that differed significantly from our own. A complex interplay of factors, including limited medical knowledge, resource constraints, and prevailing cultural attitudes, shaped their approach to hygiene, often with results less than sanitary. The hygiene habits of even the most powerful individuals in the medieval period would, by modern standards, be considered not only unpleasant, but also significant contributors to the widespread prevalence of disease and discomfort. One of the most fundamental aspects of medieval royal hygiene that jaws with modern sensibilities is the infrequency of full bathing. While the persistent myth of a complete aversion to water throughout the Middle Ages is inaccurate, the act of immersing the entire body in water was a rare occurrence for most, including those of royal lineage. This was not due to a complete ignorance of cleanliness, but rather a result of significant logistical hurdles and prevailing medical beliefs. Heating the vast quantities of water required for a royal bath was an incredibly labor-intensive and expensive undertaking, demanding considerable manpower and fuel. The bathing vessels themselves, often large wooden tubs, were difficult to sanitize and might be shared among family members or even individuals of varying social ranks. Furthermore, a dominant medical theory of the time posited that bathing opened the pores, rendering the body vulnerable to harmful humors and the entry of disease-causing agents from the surrounding air. This belief actively discouraged frequent bathing, even among those who had the means. Instead of these infrequent and cumbersome full baths, medieval royals relied more heavily on partial washing. This typically involved the daily washing of the hands, face, and perhaps the neck and arms, often with the assistance of servants who would bring basins of water, sometimes scented with herbs, to their lords and ladies. While this practice addressed the most visibly soiled areas, it did little to cleanse the rest of the body, which remained encased in layers of clothing trapping sweat, sebum, and dead skin cells. The water used for these ablutions was often cold or lukewarm, and soap, while known, was not always readily available, effective, or pleasant to use, often being a harsh concoction made from animal fat and ashes. Consequently, the underlying lack of thorough cleansing contributed to a pervasive issue that was simply accepted as a normal part of life. That pervasive issue was body odor. In the absence of regular bathing and effective deodorants, the accumulation of bodily secretions and bacteria would have created strong and often offensive smells. Medieval royals, despite their access to expensive perfumes and scented oils, were not immune to this. These fragrances were primarily employed to mask the underlying odors rather than eliminate them, often resulting in a heavy, cloying aroma that might be considered overwhelming today. Soap existed in the Middle Ages, but it was not always readily available or of high quality. It was often made from animal fat and ashes, which could be harsh or irritating to the skin. The multiple layers of heavy, often woolen or fur-lined clothing favored by royalty, while signifying status and providing warmth in drafty castles, also exacerbated the problem by trapping moisture and warmth against the skin, creating an ideal environment for odor-producing bacteria to thrive. In a society where regular bathing was not the norm, strong body odor was not considered as offensive as it is today. People were simply accustomed to it. The realm of oral hygiene in medieval royal circles was equally disconcerting from a modern perspective. Toothbrushes and toothpaste, as we understand them, were non-existent. Royals might attempt to clean their teeth by rubbing them with linen cloths, sometimes using abrasive substances like salt or ashes, or they might chew on fragrant herbs like mint or cloves in an effort to freshen their breath. Toothpicks made of wood or bone were used to dislodge food particles. However, these rudimentary methods were woefully inadequate in preventing tooth decay and gum disease. As a result, bad breath, toothaches, and tooth loss were common ailments even among the highest echelons of society, often leading to significant discomfort and impacting their overall health and appearance. Hair care also presented significant challenges. Long and elaborate hairstyles were fashionable for both male and female royals, but washing long hair was a major undertaking, requiring substantial amounts of water and considerable time for drying. Consequently, hair was likely washed very infrequently. To maintain its appearance and manage the inevitable infestations of lice and fleas, which were rampant across all social strata, royals relied on frequent and meticulous combing with fine-toothed combs. Scented oils and herbal remedies might be applied to the scalp and hair in an attempt to repel parasites and mask odors, but complete eradication of these pests was often a losing battle. The constant scratching and discomfort caused by these infestations would have been a common, albeit unglamorous, aspect of royal life. Finally, the disposal of personal waste in medieval royal residences often lacked the basic sanitation that we take for granted today. While castles and palaces often had designated garderobes, latrines, these were essentially holes or chutes that emptied into moats, cesspits, or even directly outside the castle walls. The stench emanating from these primitive facilities could be overwhelming, and they were far from sanitary, contributing to the spread of disease. Chamber pots were commonly used for nighttime needs and were typically emptied by servants into equally unsanitary locations. The very concept of organized sewage systems and effective waste management was centuries in the future. Even seemingly refined practices, such as elaborate dining rituals, often involved sharing cups and platters without the benefit of readily available hand-washing facilities between courses, further increasing the risk of germ transmission. In conclusion, while medieval royal life was characterized by immense privilege and material wealth, their personal hygiene practices, viewed through a modern lens, were often crude and even disgusting. Limited scientific understanding of disease, the practical difficulties of obtaining and using water, and cultural norms that prioritized other concerns over pervasive cleanliness resulted in habits that would leave us aghast today. The reality beneath the velvet and ermine was a world where unpleasant odors, persistent parasites, and the ever-present threat of infection were commonplace, even within the most opulent royal courts. Their disgusting habits were not necessarily a reflection of personal negligence, but rather a stark illustration of the limitations and realities of living in a pre-modern world. So, tell us what you think down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all our latest content. And as always, see you in the next video.